Out front next, President Obama reveals major breaking news. For the first time in more than 3 decades, the leaders of the United States and Iran speak. Then, new illegal spying from the NSA. This time, those doing the snooping were doing so on their significant others. And Miss Teen USA caught up in a nasty extortion plot against her, hacking into her computer, taking naked pictures. She's our guest out front. Let's go out front. And good Friday evening, everyone. I'm Erin Burnett. Out front tonight, the breaking news, an historic call with Iran. President Obama dropped a bombshell announcement today. Out of the blue, a little press conference and just kind of in passing, revealed he spoke directly to Iranian President Hassan Rouhani on the phone. It is the first time an American president has directly communicated with the ruler of Iran since 1979. It is a major shift in momentum. On Monday, the Obama administration had suggested there might be a face-to-face meeting, and they very explicitly left the door open to, quote, engage with Iran on a variety of levels. Then there was the snub seen round the world when nothing happened at the UN General Assembly. You see the word snub. President Rouhani blamed the non-meeting on a lack of time. But President Obama did not stop, and the two presidents spoke today as Rouhani was on his way to the airport and home.
I spoke on the phone with President Rouhani of the Islamic Republic of Iran. While there will surely be important obstacles to moving forward, and success is by no means guaranteed, I believe we can reach a comprehensive solution.
National Security Advisor Susan Rice then came back into the public eye, giving the details of the call to our Fareed Zakaria.
Susan Rice, can you give us a sense of how this phone call happened? Who called whom?
Well, Fareed, I think as many people know, we had indicated earlier in the week an openness to a brief informal encounter when President Obama was in New York at the General Assembly. And while we were open to that, the Iranians indicated that it was complicated for them in their context, and so it didn't occur. And then today, somewhat surprisingly, we were contacted by them to say that President Rouhani would like to speak to President Obama by telephone on his way out of town, and we were able to make that call come together, and it did, and it was a constructive discussion.
How long was the call?
About 15 minutes, but of course with translation, so it was a brief call, but sufficient to convey the messages from both sides.
Was it friendly or businesslike?
I'd say cordial and constructive. Obviously, when you have two leaders from two countries that have not communicated at that level for almost 35 years, it's something of a groundbreaking event. But they both conveyed their commitment to trying to explore in a constructive manner the diplomatic path. We've made very clear, and has long reiterated, including this week at the General Assembly, that the United States will not tolerate Iran with a nuclear weapon. But our strong preference is that this problem be resolved through diplomatic means. And obviously, as a consequence of international pressure, the international community being united, of course, the sanctions and the economic pressure, and the election of President Rouhani, there is an opportunity now to test the proposition of that diplomatic settlement.
Will there really be a diplomatic settlement? Out front tonight, General Wesley Clark, former NATO Supreme Allied Commander, and Chad Sweet, former CIA officer and co-founder of the Chertoff Group. Okay, great to have both of you with us. General Clark, let me start with you. You heard Susan Rice there, which is just amazing, giving us the details of how this actually went down. 15-minute phone call. With translation, I'm going to say that's probably 5 minutes, maybe 7 if you're lucky, you know, just having listened to the Farsi translations over time. It focused mostly on the nuclear issue, though, in terms of the content. Should the president have had the conversation directly?
I think it was a great conversation to have. And I think it's part of a broader effort where you see the United States using tough sanctions, using the threat of force to get diplomatic leverage and then get the opening for diplomatic opportunities.
Chris, what do you think? I mean, you know, talking you would think is never a bad thing, except for what matters most is there substance to the talk. So the question is, could it be a mistake to have the president directly involved? Because once the president is directly involved, the ball stops there. There is nowhere else for it to stop. And anything he says becomes, you know, a real negotiating point, a real promise, a real commitment.
You're exactly right, Erin. This is, frankly, a kinder and gentler face of Iran, but it's essentially, where's the beef? And there's no sign at the UN when Rohani spoke that he was willing to budge 1 inch from their defiant policy on nuclear enrichment. They are not going to comply, and he did not acknowledge that they would move forward on compliance with the UN resolutions calling for the halting of enrichment. They have been defiant in Syria, where they're funding our opponents there. And then lastly, we just saw that in 2011, this administration acknowledged that they disrupted a plot where they were going to assassinate the Saudi ambassador on U.S. soil. So it defies logic after he gets snubbed at the UN why the president would chase him down at the airport to call him by phone. And this is rewarding bad behavior. There is no sign that this regime is willing to change, and we should question why the president is so eager to do this.
And General Clark, let me ask you about that. You know, at a meeting with the Iranian president yesterday that I was able to attend, he was categorical that Iran will not stop enriching uranium. Of course, he didn't negotiate to what percent at that meeting. But to Ad's point, the U.S. currently says Iran is a state sponsor of terror, that it supports Hezbollah in Syria. Earlier this month, of course, the United States says that the Iranian government told militants to attack America's biggest embassy if the United States launched missiles at Syria. Those are pretty aggressive and awful allegations to make about a country. And it's pretty shocking the President of the United States would talk to that president so quickly, isn't it?
Well, we've been in a 33-year undeclared limited war with Iran. We've had incident and counter-incident all this time. We've never had the heads of state talk. What would you expect the Iranians to say at the United Nations? That they would come there and announce unilaterally that they're not going to continue to enrich? No, because then there'd be nothing for them to give up when the negotiations start.
But
so
Clark,
they're going to put a tough face on.
Though, as you said, General, though, after 33 years, I hear your point. Why wouldn't we send Secretary Kerry when we engage at a lower level? Why reward this behavior with escalating for the first time in 33 years to a dialogue with the president?
Well, what makes it a reward? I mean, in reality, both sides have to take risks with their hardliners when they talk. The outcome of this is going to be decided by leverage, by national interests, by competition. This is not going to be a friendly negotiation. But everything you can do in the atmospherics to take the edge off of it while you keep the leverage on is good. Tough, angry talk and rhetoric doesn't get you anywhere in negotiations. Real leverage does. The United States put real leverage on with the economic sanctions that are in place.
And let me ask you about that, both of you, but Chad, you first. The spokeswoman for the Department of State was on this program last night, and I asked her about that very specific question with Iran. She was categorical, again, I mean, as much as she could be, saying the United States will not ease up on sanctions on Iran unless given full inspector access to all nuclear sites. Chad, do you think the U.S. will stand by that?
Well, I think I have tremendous respect for General Clark and his experience, but I will say this. I think the General will agree that actions matter, and that at the end of the day, rhetoric doesn't. And so what we have to do is look at the Iranians' action. He's right that we've got to remain open for a dialogue at the right level. But when you look at the actions, Erin, as you said, they could have taken a very meaningful step, either even quietly behind the closed doors to help us in Syria. They could have helped also by showing that they'd meet us halfway on some type of negotiation on peaceful civilian inspections. They did neither.
All right, well, I'll leave it there for now. Thanks very much to both of you. We have a special take on what happened on that call later on in the program tonight, and you can see the entire interview with Susan Rice on Fareed Zakaria this Sunday at 10 and 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time.